On a grim and silent afternoon, August 20th, 1612, Alice Nutter stood on Gallows Hill in Lancaster, preparing to take her final breath. She's accused of witchcraft and murder. The evidence against her? It's as elusive as the sparks of joy and excitement in a stagnant love life, completely non-existent. Today we'll unravel the tale of how a 9-year-old girl sealed Alice's fate. But to truly understand this tragic turn of events, we must first follow the journey of young Alison Device as she made her way to Trawden. On March 18, 1612, the fateful paths of Alison Device and John Law, a Halifax peddler, crossed on the road between Colne and Trawden. Alison, desperate for a few pins, begged John to spare some. Knowing she had no money, he refused to even open his pack.
"Just a few pins, sir,"
she pleaded again. Suddenly, a large black dog appeared beside her. The creature sat calmly, and then, to John's horror, spoke.
"What would thou have me do to him? I can lame him."
"Lame him?"
John Law collapsed in agony, a searing pain shooting through his left side as he lay stricken on the forest path. 3 days passed as Law struggled for his life at a local alehouse, contorted in pain. When his voice finally returned, he cried out, claiming he had been cursed by a young girl in the Pendle Forest, accompanied by a demonic black dog. Desperate, he sent word to his family in Halifax. His eldest son, Abraham, rushed to his father's side, horrified by what he saw.
"Father, what has happened to you?"
"I've been cursed, lad. Find her. Find the girl named Alison Device in the woods and bring her here. She must reverse the curse."
Abraham ventured deep into Pendle Forest, found Alison, and dragged her back to face his father. The moment their eyes met, John pointed at her.
"It's you. You're the witch."
"Please, sir, you must forgive me. I'm begging you. I implore you."
In tears, Alison broke down, begging for forgiveness, unaware that she had just confessed to a capital crime, witchcraft. Strangely, John was ready to forgive her, but his son wasn't. Determined to seek justice, Abraham went to the ambitious Protestant magistrate, Roger Nowell, igniting the infamous Pendle witch trials of 1612. Alison, along with her mother and brother, was summoned before Roger Nowell. Once again she confessed, seemingly convinced of her powers. The confession opened the floodgates, drawing attention to a long-standing feud between two local families already tainted by accusations of witchcraft, the Demdikes and the Chattoxes. At the head of the Demdike family was Elizabeth Southerns, known as Old Demdike. By 1612, she was frail and blind. On the other side stood Anne Whittle, or Old Chattox, leading the rival Chattox family. Both women were widows, likely in their 80s, and had known each other their entire lives. But this was no friendly history. The rivalry between the two families ran deep, fueled by mutual distrust and bitter hatred. It dated back to 1601, when a member of Chattox's family reportedly broke into Malkin Tower, the home of the Devices, and stole goods worth around £1, a significant sum in those days. Making matters worse, Alison's father, John Device, had tried to keep peace with Old Chattox by offering her annual payments of oatmeal in exchange for her promise not to harm his family. But when the payment stopped, John, on his deathbed, claimed that his illness was caused by Chattox's wrath. With Alison, Old Demdike, Old Chattox, and Chattox's daughter, Anne Redfern, now imprisoned and awaiting trial, tensions rose. The authorities were on high alert, and when a large gathering took place at the Demdikes' home on Good Friday 1612, it was the final straw. The Pendle witch trials had begun, and there would be no turning back. Now we visit a pivotal moment in history. The meeting at Malkin Tower on Good Friday, April 10th, 1612, What seemed like an ordinary gathering would spark a chain of events leading to one of the most notorious witch trials in England. It all began when Elizabeth Device, daughter of the infamous old Demdike, hosted a meeting at her home, Malkin Tower. The purpose? To rally support for the family. But what truly set things in motion was the theft of a sheep by James Device to feed the guests. This act drew attention, and soon enough, whispers about the gathering reached the ears of magistrates Roger Nowell and Nicholas Bannister. They launched an inquiry to uncover who attended, what was discussed, and why this meeting had taken place. Nowell, convinced that something far more sinister was afoot, decided anyone connected to the event must be involved in witchcraft. 8 more people were arrested, adding to the growing list of accused witches. Among those taken into custody were Elizabeth Device herself, her son James, Alice Nutter, Catherine Hewitt, Alice Gray, and John and Jane Bulcock. Janet Preston, who lived in Yorkshire, was sent to York for her trial, while the others were locked away in Lancaster Castle to await their fate. The journey to Lancaster was grueling. The accused were forced to walk 40 miles, shackled and weary, before arriving at the castle. Imprisoned in the damp, filthy underground cells, they waited for months, enduring inhumane conditions. No sanitation, wet walls, and rampant disease. It was here that old Demdike, frail and blind, met her end before she could even stand trial. But one name stood out among the accused, Alice Nutter. Unlike the rest, Alice was a woman of means, not bound to the hardships of poverty. She didn't fit the typical profile of a witch, and her arrest caused a stir. Rumors swirled that her downfall was orchestrated by Roger Nowell himself. Seeking revenge for a land dispute Alice had won against him. On August 16, 1612, 2 weary judges, Sir James Altham and Sir Edward Bromley, arrived at Lancaster Castle to preside over the infamous trial. One by one, the accused were dragged from their dark, filthy cells to face a jury of 12 men.
First, we call Anne Whittle, known to many as Old Chattox. You stand accused of murdering Robert Nutter, a crime committed nearly 20 years ago. The evidence brought against you claims that your family is known far and wide as witches. How do you plead?
Not guilty.
We have more testimony. Witnesses claim that milk sours at your very touch. What say you to that?
It's true. I beg God for mercy, forgiveness for my sins. But please, I humbly pray, have mercy on my daughter, Anne Redfern.
Next came Elizabeth Device, charged with multiple counts of murder by witchcraft. Her own 9-year-old daughter, Janet, took the stand against her. The moment Janet entered the courtroom, Elizabeth's terror-filled screams echoed through the halls. But it was too late. Janet's damning testimony sealed her mother's fate.
My mother is a witch, and I know it for certain. She calls upon a familiar spirit, a brown dog named Ball, to do her bidding, to carry out her dark deeds.
Tell me, Janet, you recall what happened at your home on Good Friday, April 10th?
Yes, sir. At noon, about 20 people gathered at our house. My mother told me they were all witches.
Janet Device went on to describe the meeting at Malkin Tower, naming 6 others in attendance, including her brother James Device. James, now accused of being a witch himself, confessed to having summoned a black dog to help him kill. Though he pleaded not guilty, the evidence against him, bolstered by his sister's testimony, proved too much, and he was convicted. In a stunning betrayal, James Device turned against his own mother, accusing her of witchcraft.
There are 3 skulls that had been stolen from graves at the new church in Pendle, with 4 teeth from the remains hidden at Malkin Tower.
Those teeth, along with a clay figure unearthed by the constable, were presented in court as chilling evidence. Though James pleaded not guilty to the murders of Anne Townley and John Duckworth, the confession he had previously given to Roger Nowell was read aloud in the courtroom, further condemning him. But the final blow came from his sister, Janet, who testified that she had witnessed James conjuring a black dog to help him murder Townley. With such damning testimony, the jury had little doubt James Device was found guilty. Anne Redfern stood accused of a grave crime, the murder of Christopher Nutter, Robert Nutter's father. With unwavering resolve, she pleaded not guilty. The court heard Demdike's damning statement, claiming Anne had created clay figures to curse the Nutter family. Witnesses took the stand, insisting Anne was a witch, even more dangerous than her mother. Yet despite the mounting accusations, Anne never wavered. She refused to admit guilt, nor did she implicate anyone else, but in the end, it wasn't enough. The court found Anne Redfern guilty. Alice Nutter, the wealthiest of the accused, entered her plea of not guilty but offered little defense. Janet's testimony, along with rumors of her involvement in a previous murder, Henry Mitton, led to her conviction. Even without solid evidence, the jury found her guilty of witchcraft. Alison Device, the young woman whose fateful meeting with John Law set the entire Pendle witch trials in motion, faced the charge of causing harm through witchcraft. Unlike the others, Alison was forced to confront her accuser face-to-face in court. When John Law appeared, something shifted within her. Overcome with guilt, Alison dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her face, and confessed to the crime. Her belief in her own guilt was so strong that no further evidence was needed. She was swiftly found guilty. Today, medical experts suggest that Law's sudden collapse was more likely the result of a stroke, but at that time, it was enough to brand Alison as a witch. By the end of the 2-day trial, 10 people had been convicted of causing harm or death by witchcraft. Among them were Elizabeth, Alison, and James Device, along with Old Chattox, Anne Redfern, Isabel Roby, Jane Bulcock, John Bulcock, Catherine Hewitt, and Alice Nutter. The next day they were led to Gallows Hill, where they were hanged, not by a swift drop, but by slow strangulation that could last up to 20 agonizing minutes. Some accounts even describe friends and family pulling on the legs of the condemned to hasten their deaths. Meanwhile, Janet Preston, accused of murdering a local landowner named Thomas Lister by witchcraft, faced trial at York Assizes. Her connection to the Malkin Tower meeting, as testified by James Device, led to her conviction. On July 29, 1612, Janet Preston was hanged on the Knavesmire in York. Only one person, Alice Gray, walked away from the trial unscathed. She was found not guilty, but for the rest, the Pendle Witch trials would forever be remembered as one of the darkest chapters in England's history, where fear, superstition, and vengeance led to the deaths of many innocent lives. Do you believe in the power of witchcraft as firmly as Alison Device believed in her own guilt? Or was John Law's sudden illness nothing more than a twist of fate, a coincidence too perfectly timed to ignore?